Welcome to the 9th game of the 2012 high school football season. Not only is this the 9th game, this is also the first game of the WIAA state playoffs. Tonight we have the 5th-seeded Greendale Panthers paying a visit to the 4th-seeded Wauwatosa West Trojans. These two teams played each other a few weeks ago, with Tosa winning in dramatic fashion by a score of 37-30 in overtime. We'll see if Greendale can avenge that loss tonight. Greendale would be receiving first to start the game. After a modest return, they would start from their 25. It didn't take long for Greendale to flex its offensive muscle, for on the second play, Ringelberg would keep an option and scamper 74 yards for the first touchdown of the night. The snap, the extra point was on the ground, so Frankie Rakowski had no choice but to pick it up and see if he could reach the end zone. That didn't happen, so Greendale would only put 6 points on the board with 11:02 left in the opening quarter of play. After the ensuing kick, which went out of bounds, Tosa would start from their 35. They would bring out their offense minus two main cogs, as running back Brock Jameson was not suited up for tonight, and somehow speedster wideout Devlin Ferguson hurt his ankle in pre-game warm-ups, so they would be without his services tonight too. He would manage to pound the ball 10 plays before being forced to punt from Greendale's 33. After a great kick by Mickey Morgan, Greendale would start from their 5-yard line. They didn't waste any time, for on the second play of the drive, Ringelberg hooked up with Cody Metz for a huge 87-yard scoring strike. The try for two failed, and just like that, Greendale was up 12-0 with 5:59 left in the first quarter. Tosa would bring their offense out to see if they could answer, as they would start from their 40. 3 plays later, they would connect on a huge 37-yard pass, taking the ball all the way to the Panther 14. 2 plays after that, running back Demarius Purifoy would take a straight-ahead handoff and score from 8 yards out. Kicker Zach Veit would split the uprights, making the score 12-7 with 3:54 left in the first quarter. After another modest return, Greendale would start from their 27. He would run 5 plays before turning the ball over and downs at the Tosa 47. The Panther defense was now starting to rise to the occasion, as they were containing Tosa's speedy offense. They ended up forcing them to line up for a punt as they went 3 and out. On the punt play, however, Greendale's Chris Phillips would block the kick, of which Mickey Morgan was able to pick up, but he could not get the necessary yardage for the first down, so Greendale would take over 1st and 10 and the Tosa 44. Greendale would get off 1 play before the first quarter came to an end. Greendale would resume their drive after switching ends of the field. 2 plays later, Ringelberg would find Kometz again for a 33-yard scoring strike as the defender fell down on the play. This would cap off a 3-play, 73-yard drive. Rakowski would hit the upright, doink, and so Greendale would only put 6 points up on the board, making the score 18-7 with 11:32 left in the first half. Tosa was now in need of answering back, as Greendale looked to be hooked up on offense tonight. They would start this drive from their 39. After a nice run by Greg Lewis, the defense would eventually shut the door. Plays later, Greendale cornerback David Michaels intercepted a pass, giving the ball right back to Ringelberg and the rest of the offensive entourage. Greendale would now take over from their 24. 5 plays later, Ringelberg was looking at Metz and threw him the ball. This time the defender would bat the ball up in the air, but somehow Metz stayed with it and managed to gather it in for his 3rd touchdown of the game. This time they would go for 2 and convert, as Ringelberg would hit Mitchell Breeze on a slant pass. The score was now 26-7 with 7:37 left in the first half. Panthers specialty teams were now getting amped up, as Peter Pika rocked the return man, causing a fumble, but the ball was ruled down by contact. Tosa would have to start from their 28. 3 plays later, they would have to call on their punter, as they failed to gather the necessary yardage for a first down. After a short kick, Greendale would take over on the Tosa 43. They continue to attack through the air. 5 plays later, Ringelberg would find a wide-open Nate Miller over the middle of the field for a 39-yard scoring strike. This time Rakowski would make the kick, as Greendale was now blowing this game wide open by a score of 33-7 with 4:26 left in the half. The Trojans would start from their 27 after the ensuing kick. Again, the Panthers' front line was making life miserable for Tosa's running attack. 3 plays later, Michaels would pick his 2nd ball off of the night, giving the ball right back to his offense on the 43. Greendale again was on the move. This time Wauwatosa would make a stop, as they intercepted a tip pass on their 21. The Panthers' defense offense again forced Tulsa to line up for another punt. They would get this kickoff, but they were penalized, so they would be backed up 5 yards and re-kick from the end zone. That penalty would cost them 2 points as Morgan could not control the ball and wisely just batted the ball out of the back of the end zone for a safety. Greendale was now up 35-7 with just 44 seconds left in the first half. After the free kick, Greendale would start from their 37. They would squeeze off 4 plays before the first half came to an end. The Panthers would now have to kick to start the second half. After the return, Tosa, who has a mountain to climb, would begin from their 38. They would only put 5 plays together before they would have to punt once again. After the kick, the Panthers took over from their 14. On this drive, head coach Rob Stoltz elected to keep the ball on the ground, so that meant that Jake Zwicky would go to work. 6 plays later, Zwicky bounced off a few defenders and then took the ball up the left sideline for a 37-yard scoring jaunt. The snap of the kick was mishandled again, so Greendale would have to settle for 6, but that didn't matter anymore, for the score was now 41-7 with 7:23 left in the third quarter. Tosa would now start their next drive on the 21 after the ensuing kick. This time they would put a huge 19-play drive together, taking the game into the fourth quarter. But when it rains, it pours, as they would eventually fumble on the Panther 19. Greendale, who was now in total control of the game, would begin their next drive. They ran 4 plays before having to punt for the first time in the game. After Picar's kick, Tosa would start from their 42. 11 plays later, the Trojans would reach the end zone as Morgan took an inside handoff from 4 yards out. White would make his kick, making the score 41-14 with 3:51 now left in the game. After the ensuing kick, Greendale would start from their 20. On this drive, the Panther coaches would send in their second offense. On the very first play, the ball would be snapped over David Wood's head, of who now was in at quarterback. The ball ended up going into the end zone and was recovered by Wood, but he was tackled in the end zone, so that was a 2-point safety. The score was now 41-16 with 3:43 left in the game. After the free kick, Tosa would begin from their 41. They couldn't move the sticks and they were forced to punt, going 3 and out. After the return, Greendale's second offense would go out once again. Again, there was a high snap that Wood couldn't handle, and after everybody unpiled, Wauwatosa would come up with the ball on Greendale's 28. The Trojans would run 3 plays before the game finally came to an end. Greendale would show resolve and make a statement as they defeated the Wauwatosa West Trojans 41-16. They started out fast and furious and never looked back, as they finished with 518 yards of total offense and only gave up 277 yards on defense. Josh Ringelberg would finish with 300 yards through the air, going 13 for 21, and 4 of those went for touchdowns. Of course, no one could ignore the fact that the Wauwatosa West Trojans came in missing some players that would have probably made a difference. Nonetheless, that's part of the game. Wauwatosa will now turn their equipment in as they finish with a great season of 7-2. Greendale will continue on to level 2 as they will host the number 1 seeded Brookfield Spartans. The Spartans defeated Milwaukee Tech in their first game by a score of 62-7. They are also undefeated this year and are members of the Greater Metro Conference. That game is scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock. Hope to see you all there. So long.